Welcome to Byqus. In today's video, we're going to understand one of the most important building blocks of Active Directory, the forest. If you're new to Active Directory, the word forest might sound unusual or even confusing. But don't worry. By the end of this video, you will have a crystal clear understanding of what an AD forest is, how it works, and why it is such a critical part of identity management. Let's get started. What is a forest in Active Directory? In Active Directory, the forest is the topmost and the largest container. It sits right at the highest level of the AD hierarchy and defines how everything else inside Active Directory is organized and secured. The simplest way to understand it is this. A forest is the outer boundary of your entire Active Directory world. Everything inside Active Directory, whether it's users, computers, security groups, organizational units, or even the domains themselves, all of these live within a forest. A forest is not just another component. It is the foundation. Without a forest, there is no Active Directory. It is the very first thing created, and everything else builds on top of it. Forest as a security boundary. Now here's something extremely important. A forest acts as a security boundary. What does that mean? Everything inside the forest automatically trusts each other. Domains inside the same forest can freely authenticate with each other, share resources, and apply consistent policies. But anything outside the forest is completely separate. Another organization may have its own Active Directory forest, but by default, it has no access to your environment. Your data, your identities, and your resources remain isolated. This is why organizations treat the forest as the ultimate security container. No matter how many domains they have inside it, the forest defines the trust, the control, and the boundaries. A forest contains one or more domains. Every forest must have at least one domain. When you first create a forest, one domain is created automatically. This is the beginning of your directory structure. But a forest doesn't have to remain a single domain. It can grow. Small and medium-sized organizations often use a simple design, one forest with one domain. It's easy to manage and perfectly suitable for their needs. Larger, globally distributed companies may introduce multiple domains inside the same forest. For example, you may have a parent domain like company.com, and underneath it, child domains like india.company.com or europe.company.com. Even though these domains are separate and may serve different regions or teams, they still belong to the same forest boundary. The schema, the forest common rulebook. Inside the forest, there's a very important component called the schema. You can think of the schema as the rulebook of Active Directory. The schema defines two things. First, what types of objects are allowed to exist in Active Directory? These are things like users, computers, groups, printers, or organizational units. Second, the schema defines what information each of these objects can contain. For example, a user object can have a first name, a last name, an email address, a password, a job title, a department, and many other attributes. Similarly, a computer object has its own set of attributes, such as the operating system or its last logon time. The schema ensures consistency across the entire forest. Every domain in the forest follows these same rules, which makes the directory predictable, stable, and easy to manage. Shared configuration information. Along with the schema, the forest also stores something called configuration information. This includes details like your network's physical layout, the different office locations or AD sites, the IP subnets, and how domain controllers communicate with each other. It also includes replication settings, when data should be synchronized, how often it should happen, and which domain controller should exchange information. Additionally, it includes information about services that Active Directory depends on. All of this data lives inside a special part of Active Directory called the Configuration Partition. And the best part? Every domain controller in the entire forest gets a copy of this configuration. This ensures that the entire environment remains consistent, no matter how large it grows. The global catalog. Another key component of the forest is the global catalog, often called the GC. If the forest is the world, then the global catalog is the world's search engine. The global catalog stores partial information about every single object in the forest: users, computers, groups, and more. Not the full details, just the important bits that help with quick identification and searching. Let's say a user named Mira works in India.company.com, and she wants to find a printer that exists in Europe.company.com. If her computer had to search each domain separately, it would be slow and inefficient. Instead, her computer simply asks the global catalog. The GC quickly returns the information, and Mira gets what she needs instantly. This is why GC is essential for forest-wide searches, authentication, and overall performance. The forest root domain. When a forest is created for the first time, the very first domain becomes the forest root domain. This domain is the foundation on which the entire forest stands. It holds two very important forest-wide roles: the schema master, which controls any changes to the schema, and the domain naming master, which controls the creation and removal of domains. All future domains that you add to your forest will connect back to this root domain. That's why organizations prefer to keep the forest root domain stable, clean, and well protected. Changing or renaming it later can cause major issues because it impacts the entire forest. Advanced scenario: multi-forest, multi-domain. Most organizations will never need more than one forest. A single forest can support many domains and meet the needs of most businesses. However, in very large or highly isolated environments, such as different companies under the same group, government departments, or subsidiaries with strict data boundaries, multiple forests may be used. Each forest then becomes its own identity world, with its own domains, administrators, policies, schema, and global catalog. These forests only communicate if you create a trust relationship between them. Otherwise, they remain completely separate. Let's quickly recap what we learned. A forest is the highest level structure in Active Directory. It defines the security boundary and contains one or more domains. All domains inside the forest follow the same schema and configuration rules. The forest also contains the global catalog, which helps users search for resources across all domains. And the first domain that you create becomes the forest root domain, forming the foundation of the entire AD environment. Understanding the forest makes the rest of Active Directory much easier to learn. If you enjoyed this beginner-friendly explanation, make sure to hit the like button. For reading a detailed learning, navigate to the blog post on Byqus.com. Link is provided in the description. Subscribe to Byqus for more simple, clear, and practical tutorials on Microsoft technologies. In the upcoming videos, we will dive deeper into concepts like domains, trusts, schema, and many other Active Directory components, with detailed explanations and real practical examples. For any issues with the video, or to ask questions, please comment. So stay connected, because there is a lot more to learn. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Good day and happy learning.